Today's video is my take on page 16 of Andrea Nelson's Filler Practice Sketchbook in 2025. Hers was about circles, and I had a couple different ideas that I was like tossing around in my head because, I wanted to put my own spin on it. So then I had a thought of, my idea was to try to paint bubbles because I thought that would be fun. So that's what we're gonna do today. Hey friends, I'm Lisa, your go-to gal for all things watercolor painting and DIY crafting, and this is Our Gray House. For today's painting, you'll need some circle-shaped things and a white jelly roll pen. I'm doing this on Canson Graduate Mixed Media Black paper. It's 147 pound, 9 by 12 inch that I just cut down to size. And you're just going to trace the circle shapes onto the paper. Put as many as you like, wherever you like. I was going to say, you don't want to completely cover the paper, but then I thought, I always say it's your art and you can do whatever you want, so if you want to cover the paper, then go for it. I fully support you in wanting to do that. I wanted some blank area so it would look like the bubbles are kind of floating, but again, you do you, boo. Wait, new palette alert. This is a palette that I got from Hobby Lobby. The colors are iridescent, so I thought that that would look great for bubbles. And like I said earlier, I had a couple of ideas going into this, but I really wanted to try and learn how to paint bubbles. And y'all need to remember, I'm not a realistic style painter. I am more of an illustrative or like an impressionistic type in my approach to things. Like, I want you to know what this is, but I'm not necessarily going to be perfect about it. So I'm taking the paint and I'm swiping it around the circle, and I paint on one side and then I paint on the opposite side. But I don't try to make them all match up perfectly or anything like that. And just an FYI, this part I've sped up to about twice as fast as like a normal speed. And so yeah, just keep that in mind. Some of the paint was not opaque enough to show up well, but it does have a shimmer to it. So for that part, I just let it dry and I go over it again. And depending on the paper you use and the paints you use, you may have to do some adjustments just like I did. I'm going to speed up the rest of this, but it's basically the same thing. I do vary the size of the stroke. Sometimes it's thinner, sometimes it's curved weird, and you'll see me go outside the lines, and some of the circles are wonky to begin with, but I figure nature isn't perfect, so I don't have to be either. Now on this next part, I'm putting on the highlight of the bubble, and I'm using Dr. P.H. Martin Bleed Proof White, but you could use chalk paint or acrylic paint. But y'all, if you change paint type, do not use your good watercolor brush for that. Please do not do that. If you use Dr. P.H. Martin Bleed Proof White, you can use your watercolor brush. But if you use acrylic or chalk paint or something like that, change to a different brush. Then I have to put down paper because we're about to splatter up in here. I still have not developed a technique that doesn't get splatter everywhere, and I may never find that right technique, but in the meantime, I'll just protect the area to minimize the area that's getting splattered. So what I do to make splatter is I wet my brush, and not so it's like sopping, dripping wet, but wet. And then I dip it in the paint and I get a good amount on the brush, and then I might dip it back into the water again, but I'm careful on this part because I don't want a big blob of splatter. Oh, and I use a smaller brush to load the paint and water on. And I hold it on the end of the handle and tap it on top with another brush. So the brush with the paint and the water is getting tapped on. And this is the way that's working best for me right now. And I do add some more dots because I want to. And I think the splatter and dots looks fun. And speaking of fun, did you know that dolphins and whales blow bubbles for fun? They do, and I agree, bubbles are fun. I felt like it needed a bit more color on the bubbles, so I added more. And we've been painting bubbles, but do you know how bubbles are formed? Well, they are formed when a gas, like air, becomes trapped within a thin film of liquid. Usually it's like soap and water. So I kind of feel like I put too much paint on some of these. But at the same time, I think they look fine. I don't know, it's just kind of like, as I'm looking back at it, I'm just kind of like, there's a lot of paint. But also, I think it turned out good. Do you think these look like bubbles, or is it only because you know what they're supposed to be? I think they look like bubbles, and I also think that this was fun and I want to try it again. And I hope you come back so that we can chat some more. And I post almost daily here and on TikTok and Instagram, and if you want to follow me on social media, my handle is OurGrayHouse, but just don't follow me in real life though, because that's creepy. Bye!